Welcome to this week's edition of Good Books Radio. I'm your host, Dr. W.F. Strong. We have a wonderful book for you today, but before I get to that, I want to thank our underwriter, audiobooks.com. If you like this interview that we have today and want to hear it again, you can pick it up as a podcast on Facebook, Good Books Radio, or on our Google channel, Good Books Radio. I'm excited about this because this book is Change Your Biology Diet by Dr. Aroney out of New York City, probably most famous for saving David Letterman's life. And we're going to talk about that in a minute as well. But I thought at the beginning of the year, this would be a great book to talk about because this is the time of year that everybody decides to make the big changes or pushes for the big change. Dr. Aroney, thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
Now, let's deal with the first things first. You saved David Letterman, right?
Well, that's what Dave said. I took care of him. I've been taking care of him for 25 years. He's a wonderful man.
And I remember the episode of Dave's show where he brought, I suppose you out. He brought out the whole medical team that saved him. Was that you?
Yes, I was the first person. I diagnosed the problem.
That was very, I guess, generous of him in a sense. I don't know how you could be, how you wouldn't do that, but a lot of people wouldn't do that. And I thought that was very cool of him to bring all of you out and say thank you.
It was, and he just shows you who the guy he really is. He's a very generous, wonderful person.
And when he comes in to see you, does he keep you laughing all the time?
Everybody's laughing. Yes, you're right. He's quite comical.
Well, he writes a foreword for your book that is hilarious. I love that, and we'll maybe share a little bit of that later if we can get to it. But let's begin with your diet. One of the things I like in the first chapter is you cover all the diets from history in a sense, and I found that rather fascinating. Can you run over some of those, go over some of those for us, the diets in history?
Sure. The reason I did that was for people to see that there really isn't anything new. There's not that much that's new. Things have, they come around again and again. So going from low-carb diets, the first low-carb diet was in the 1800s. And then we had diets with tapeworms where you have a little tapeworm egg, and then after you lost weight, they would give you the treatment for the tapeworm. Smoking cigarettes was a diet. Soaps, slimming soaps. That's kind of like all of the over-the-counter supplements that we see now, most of which, I'd say none of them have real evidence that they work. You go back to the 1930s, people would use soap to try to lose weight.
Yeah.
So, we've been through many, many different approaches, and the problem has been that they just work for a short period of time, and then they stop working.
I liked your the graham cracker diet because I didn't realize that the graham cracker was created as a diet.
It was created as a diet food. The graham cracker was created as a diet food. So, compared to white products, it was considered to be somewhat better and more nutritious at that time.
Well, my understanding also is that Graham, who invented this, who I suppose is no relation to Billy Graham, but he was a minister of sorts, and he believed that this was good for your spiritual life.
That may be, but that Graham crackers go back to the early 1800s. So many things over a long period of time. The diets go back to the period of Hippocrates, if you really want to go way back. But one of the things we've recognized since then is that when you lose weight, your weight tends to go back up again.
That's true.
And the kind of work that we've done here at the Comprehensive Weight Control Center at Weill Cornell is to try to understand why that is. Why do people keep regaining the weight? And what research shows is that it is not a disorder of willpower.
Mm-hmm.
The problem is not that you have no willpower. The problem is that there are physical mechanisms that make it hard for you to lose weight, and they encourage weight regain.
Mm-hmm. Well, let me share a personal story with you. In my case, I'm 6'5", and when I was about 35 years old, I weighed 220. So very good weight for height. Okay, skinny actually, a little bit. And I went off to Africa for a year to teach over there. And when I was there, I just didn't like the food. I couldn't find anything to eat. Of course, there was no fast food. And I lost, 20 pounds in a year without trying. And then I came back and I started eating the foods that I loved, Whataburgers and things like that, so dear to Texans. And in a year, about probably 2 years, I was at 240. I just shot way back up over anything I'd ever been before. So what happened to me?
Well, what happened when you were there is that you were eating much less than you were eating before, and so your body was doing everything it could to try to slow down your metabolism to prevent you from starving to death.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why you lost weight.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe if you had stayed there, you would have regained a little bit of weight. You would have gotten used to the food. You would have found some better food. But then when you came back, your body was just yearning for these things. You were very, very hungry. And so when you started to eat, you had a suppressed metabolism. You went way past where you used to be. And we recognize that this is a mechanism to try to help you survive. So we say it's survival of the fattest. Darwin got it wrong. It's not survival of the fittest.
And you also point out in the book that as you are 60 years old or so, that it's good to have a little extra weight, that you actually are healthier in a sense because of it, but a little bit, right? Right,
so you have a little bit extra nutrition stored. You have some extra calories in case you get sick and you can't eat as much. You have some calories stored. So being a little bit overweight is okay. The problem is that most people now in the country are getting to be a lot overweight, and that causes a tremendous health burden. Causes everything from diabetes, heart disease. More than 50 illnesses are directly related to increased fat in the body.
Well, you, of course, see, I guess, a disproportionate number of people are out of shape because you're a cardiologist. But if you look at the statistics as you know them, what percentage of people are truly overweight in your mind?
Well, 2/3 of people altogether are overweight. And of those 2/3, half of them, a third, are obese, are technically obese. And those are the people we're most concerned about. So that's a third of the population is at risk. If you look at the risk of diabetes in that group, it's 10 times the baseline. I mean, that's a big risk of diabetes. If you get those people to lose 10 to 15 pounds, you've reduced their risk of diabetes by half. So that's what we're trying to do, is if we can get everyone to lose just 10, 15 pounds, you're going to reduce diabetes tremendously.
Well, you point out in the book, and you said just a moment ago that you said there are no new diets. So has your diet been around a while?
Our approach has evolved over the past 20 years. So I've been doing this since 1987. I got interested in weight and weight regulation, and have been doing treatment and research since then. And we now have an entire center. We have 5 doctors and nurse practitioner, dietitians. And what we do is we do research on new treatments for obesity. We do serious medical research. The way people do research on cancer and heart disease, we do it on obesity. And so the book is a culmination of everything we've learned in our clinical practice and our research.
Okay, so you don't do any lap band surgery, you don't do things like that?
We have a surgeon, but I am not a surgeon. So if someone doesn't succeed, we will refer them for surgery.
Okay. So in these years, what have you learned that has surprised you?
Well, there are a couple of things, and the most important is that a calorie is not a calorie. Everyone told me that a calorie was a calorie. It doesn't matter what you have. And the key thing is that while metabolically calories may be the same, calories have a different impact on what you eat after you consume them. So protein, fat, vegetables, they seem to make you feel full and eat less later on. But if you eat starches and sweets, we find that people eat more later on. They're not satisfied. And this is critical because we're trying to cut down on what we eat, and all of a sudden we have this sense of not feeling full and being hungrier. It's impossible to stick with it if that's how you feel.
So calories are not equal.
Right. So here's the best study I've ever seen, which was done in young men, and there are several studies that are just like this. What they did is one day gave them instant oatmeal. Another day they gave them eggs for breakfast. And they looked at how much they ate later in the day.
Okay.
After having the instant oatmeal, they ate 80% more later that day compared to the day they had the exact same number of calories of eggs.
Wow.
So what do you want to have for breakfast?
Well, I have a lot of eggs, but I worry about it because of the cholesterol thing, you know?
Well, the evidence is not that strong for eggs and cholesterol. If you look at the latest guidelines from the government, there's no longer a prohibition on eating eggs and most of the fats, especially olive oil.
Yeah.
And the evidence is olive oil is healthy.
So, like last year, I did a Atkins diet, and it worked. You know, I lost 15 pounds in 2 months. It was hard because I like my carbs, but I was good, and I lost the pounds, but now I've put them back on.
Right, and I'll tell you what happened. So we've solved one of the great mysteries of dieting, which is what happens when you go on a low-carb diet like that. It could be the paleo diet, it could be Atkins, there's another diet called the Dukan diet. What happens is you go back and you start eating carbs. You have them for breakfast, as in cereal or toast. You'll have bread when you go to dinner.
Right.
And what we find is that revs up your appetite. You get hungrier. If you have the carbs, if for breakfast if you have a protein, that's critical.
Okay.
And then at other meals, if you have your vegetables and protein first and the carbs at the end, that dramatically reduces your appetite. You can control your eating.
Okay.
And I was interviewed last week by someone from Chicago, one of the biggest talk show hosts in Chicago. And what he said was, I saw you on CBS last week, and I started doing what you said, protein for breakfast, and the vegetables and protein, and if I needed carbs, I had it at the end. He said, I haven't been able to control my eating since I was a child, and for the first time, I feel like I don't have to keep on eating. The point is that, you know, if you don't eat carbs, like in the Atkins diet, eventually you'll lose your mind. Right?
Yes.
Something makes you want to eat it. But what I'm saying is, okay, you got to eat it, but when you eat it is critical to how hungry you're going to be and how well you're going to be able to stick with the plan.
Okay, well, let's go through your suggested, let's say, a day of eating. At breakfast, we have eggs and what?
So you might have a vegetable egg white omelet.
Okay.
It could be, there are many other things you could have. Could you have ham? Sure. Could you have bacon some days? Sure. But, you know, we're not encouraging you to have those things.
Right.
But, you know, big egg white omelet, some days eggs. You could have yogurt. We prefer what's called Greek yogurt because it has more protein in it. A protein shake, a whey protein shake would be absolutely fine. And do you have to do that every single day? At the beginning, it's a good idea to do it because, like the Atkins diet, it keeps your eating under control.
Okay.
But as time goes on, if you do it once or twice, if you have a carb once or twice a week, you'll find that it doesn't have the same impact of increasing your appetite.
Okay.
Then later in the day, the way we want you to eat is to have a vegetable like a salad, a regular vegetable, a protein like chicken, and then if you need to have carbs, you have them at the end of the meal.
Okay.
And again, most people will find that initially they don't need to have them, but after a couple of days or a week, they'll want to have those carbs. And if you have them at the beginning, you'll find that your eating is hard to control. You're really hungry. You're starving later on.
Huh. Well, you know,
But if you have them at the end, it'll be like, wow, this is amazing. I don't know what's going on.
I notice
That's what you have to do.
a lot of steak places, for instance, they your upper scale steak restaurants, they often give you a big loaf of bread before they bring anything else, you know. And it's true, you know, you have the bread, and then it kind of ramps up your appetite for more food.
Right.
That will
People
come.
tell me, I don't know how I could possibly be hungry because I just had a loaf of bread, then I had a steak, then I had potatoes. How could I possibly be hungry? But the point is that these foods break down your sense of fullness and make it possible for you to eat. We call it fullness resistance. Your brain isn't receiving the messages from your fat cell, stomach, and intestine in order to actually sense how full you are, so it allows you to be able to continue to eat. And if you change how you eat, the order in which you eat, you will be able to do it better. In fact, we did a study recently. What we were looking at was blood sugar in people with diabetes.
Right.
What we saw, so we gave the exact same meal. One day we gave bread first, followed by chicken and vegetables, and another day we just switched it around. We gave the exact same number of calories to these people with early onset diabetes. What we saw was that on the day they had the bread first, their blood sugar doubled.
Wow.
Went up 100 points after an hour. But on the day that they had the chicken and vegetables first, their blood sugar rose gradually. It went up only 25%, 25 points after an hour, and after 2 hours, it was much, much lower. And it took only half the amount of insulin, the critical hormone insulin, which controls blood sugar, to get this much better control. So this is a big advance in diabetes management. And it's something like we have people coming from all over the world to us to teach them how to do it, because they're able to eat what they want to eat, but their sugar stays in better control.
That's fascinating. Do you have any foods that you say are just no, never, don't eat that?
Well, there are any very high sugar, high carb, high fat food is something you have to be careful of. But the thing we really think is not good are sugar sweetened beverages. So sodas and even juices. You really got to be careful with these, because the evidence is that they don't fill you at all. You know, your brain just doesn't seem to be able to tell that you consume calories, even though you're consuming lots of calories. And it may make you even hungrier or want more sweets later on. So having diet beverages, if you want to do that, that's fine. That's much, much better.
But I hear that research, I heard it on NPR just the other day, that people who drink diet drinks are usually heavier than people who drink regular soda.
Right. So that evidence is mixed. If you look at the risk, the question is, are the people who are drinking the diet beverage people who are heavier, who are trying to lose weight? And we don't know that. But a key point is research looking at people who drink diet beverages over a long period of time versus people who drink sugar-sweetened beverages shows that drinking sugar-sweetened beverages daily increases your risk of having heart disease, stroke, cancer associated with those things, whereas the diet beverages, it's lower. So I'm not telling you to drink diet beverages.
Right.
The best thing is water and unsweetened beverages.
Okay. So lots of water.
Plenty of water.
Because that's something I hear with every diet almost, is you drink water and you'll feel full. You
do feel fuller if you drink water.
My mother used to say you should drink a glass of water before your meal, because it would fill you up and send the message that you don't need so much food.
It definitely helps. Definitely helps. So if you look at what our recommendations in the Change Your Biology diet are, to have the vegetables and protein first, it slows down the passage of the carbs into your intestine. And that's really important. That seems to be the key thing we're doing. Very simple, but profoundly important.
What role does exercise play in your plan?
Well, exercise helps to maintain weight loss. It helps you to get to a lower weight. Initially, we tell people to focus their mental energy on what they're eating. And as time goes on, exercise plays a more and more important role. So seeing people going out to the gym and trying to lose weight that way, if you want to get in shape, great. But if you think you're going to lose weight by just going to the gym, it's very, very hard. I don't want to say it's impossible, but it's very hard to do.
I know that I think it's the Cooper Institute in Dallas used to promote a 10,000 steps program. 10,000 steps a day, and you'll be healthy. And that was kind of all the rage for a little while, at least down here in this part of the world. And a lot of people tried it, but they found out it was really hard to do 10,000 steps a day. That was it's like 5 miles or something like that. So
that's exactly right. It is hard, but you can do it. You can, if you shoot for that, you can get a lot of steps in, and that's a great way of improving many aspects of your health. The key thing is going from nothing to something.
Well, I did that program I wouldn't call it program. I just, signed on, so to speak, on my own, and I did it for about 6 months, I would say, and I found that it was really hard to get in 10,000 steps without going out and walking 2 miles sometime in the day, because it was good to you get all the steps around the house, mowing the lawn or whatever, but you had to at some point say, okay, I'm short 3,000 steps. I got to go walk a couple miles to knock this out. And but it was good. I liked it. I did like it.
It's great. If it focuses you on getting things done, getting something done, there's nothing wrong with that. So it's a lot easier to get in physical activity than it is to get in exercise. So if you want to go to the gym, that's great, but you can get in activity even if you're not going to the gym.
I bet like you around the hospital, you probably walk a lot.
We do. We do walk a lot. We're 7 blocks from the main hospital here in our weight control center, and we go back and forth all the time, and that's terrific. That's our major source of activity around here.
Well, and plus in New York City, I guess you have a lot of people they're better walkers than other parts of because it's hard to get around in a car, right?
Oh, the traffic has really become very bad, and if you walk, so there's uptown, downtown, crosstown. The average person walks faster than a crosstown bus. So it's well known. So we tell people don't ever take public transportation crosstown. Only walk crosstown. You get a lot of exercise.
So what was David Letterman's struggle? I mean, he looked like a thin guy. I was surprised that he was having problems.
It's well known from his history. He's talked about it as a family history of heart disease at relatively young age.
Really?
And at the age he was when people have had other heart events. So we were prepared for it. We were thinking about it, and fortunately we were able to head off anything bad happening.
And then and he had a quadruple bypass, right? I mean, that's what he says here, and we're not talking out of school because he tells us right in the foreword of your book that he had a quadruple bypass, I think is what he said, right?
Yes, he did. He had a bypass, and he has been fine since. So it shows what we can do with the miracles of modern science.
He says that you have devoted your life to helping the world understand food, obesity, and how to win big playing online poker.
That's right. Well, not really the poker, but as far as the weight, it's really been something that I've been devoted to for my whole career. Some of the work that we're doing now is, I believe that we're very close. We have some new treatments for obesity. We have some medical treatments. So if someone doesn't succeed with diet alone, we don't tell them to give up. We then move on to medicine. We find that medicines can make it hard for people to lose weight. So when we talk to a patient, we ask them about their medicines. In fact, today I saw a new patient referred by the doctor, can't lose weight, we don't know what's going on. She's gained 50 pounds over the past 15 years, 50-pound weight gain. And she's got prediabetes, we see, and she's taking 4 medicines that can cause you to gain weight. So, in her case, we could sit there and yell at her all we want to eat less. It's never going to help. What we need to do is find a regimen that will change these key medicines and it'll make it easier metabolically for her to lose.
So her pharmaceuticals are creating a bad biology for her.
That's exactly right. It's biasing her weight-regulating system in favor of more weight gain.
Now, are there any medicines that you prescribe for people to lose weight that you believe in?
We do, and there are 4 that are approved by the FDA for long-term use. Saxenda, Contrave are 2 of them, Belviq, and Qsymia. And we use these very, very regularly in our patients. One of the things you have to know is that when you take a medicine for weight loss, there's about a 50-50 chance that it's going to work. If it works, great. The average person loses about 10% of their body weight. If it doesn't work, then you don't really lose very much.
Yeah.
And so what we do is kind of a form of trial and error. We try something, see how it works. If it works, great. If not, we move on to the next step.
Is there any relationship between, let's say, race and obesity, or maybe more likely culture and obesity?
There is. And in some cultures, in the Hispanic culture, Mexican Americans, there is a strong genetic tendency to weight gain, strong tendency to abdominal obesity. And again, change your biology diet works well in that situation because so what we would do is tell someone to have their salad, their vegetables. If they're going to eat starches, pasta, rice, or potatoes, have it at the end of the meal. We find we treat people from all over the world here. We find that there are a lot of cultures where having something like rice, like you have to eat rice. You can't not eat it. They're trying to put people like that on Atkins diet. It's like, you're kidding me, right?
Yeah,
but
that's right.
Even in cultures where it's very important to do that, having rice towards the end of the meal or whatever the starch is, that's okay. People are willing to make that change.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. This is a wonderful book, and I like that it's so science-based and rather than fad-based.
Thank you very much. I feel like this is what we do 24/7. Like we eat, sleep, and breathe serious weight loss, and I think the listeners out there should know that. Like, we didn't just think this up yesterday. This is stuff that works. It works all the time in our patients, and we're very excited to be able to bring it to your listeners.
Well, thanks again. The book is Change Your Biology Diet, The Proven Program for Lifelong Weight Loss by Dr. Aronne, MD, New York City, and the man who saved David Letterman. Thanks for joining us on Good Books Radio. Join us again next week for a new book. I think Dr. Cook will be here next week. Again, if you want to check out this interview again, you can get it on Good Books Radio on Facebook. Here's hoping that all your books are good reads. I'm signing off. Dr. W.F. Strong, have a good day.